Again, on the learning plan in Blackboard, and it's full of 1 or 2 or 3, 4 years ago stuff, so ignore all this. But the important part is at the bottom, if you want to walk along with this bonus chapter 4 is actually a PDF. It wasn't printed in the book, so I even had to print it out. So if you want to have that open in some way, shape, or form, to have the book quote in front of you or open, I know you don't have a lot of screen real estate, but this chapter 4 is a bonus chapter. So it is here. You can always go back and look at this if you need to, because you actually have the book in front of you. So let's get Premiere launched. And let's open a project. Why is this all weird shaped? And we're going to go wherever you have the book files. In the lessons, go to lesson 4. And we're going to go with the start file. And then you're going to have to save it, and remember to save it perhaps somewhere else. However you're saving it, we're going to call this one Poolside Edit 02. So we're doing a little bit of versioning where we have version 1, version 2, and that way if we screw up, we can always go back just one chunk in time to the last chapter.
What'd you name it?
Poolside Edit 02.
Please tell me it's not unexpected.
It's project 4 or learning plan lesson 4 start file.
Oh, there we go. Flash drive was on.
First thing that we're going to do, so we named this, you can see up in the top in that gray bar, we named it Poolside Edit 02 PR project. The nice thing about this is, as like I said, if we botch this all up, at least Poolside Edit 01, which we did the last few weeks, is there. So it's versioning. We're also going to do that with our sequence. So in your project panel, twirl open your sequence bin and single click on the Poolside BTS 01 sequence. And we're going to copy it and paste it. So do however you want to do a copy and a paste. And below it, not nested in that folder, you see Poolside BTS 01 again, a copy of it. Click on it to change the name and change the name of it to 02. And then click on that sequence and drag it into the sequence folder so that it's nested in and it's assigned to it. So right now it's exactly the same as the sequence we've done already, the 01 sequence, but now this is where we're adding on to it. So again, it provides that versioning. If you need to go back, you don't ruin everything. Okay? Everybody good?
What did we just do?
Not
I
good?
was helping him.
I don't have. I still don't have my file open, so I'll pick it
Why
up.
didn't you say something before?
See?
Yeah.
It's
Because I said, is everybody
if
okay?
everybody else is ready. My file was like missing. I had to like go back to the original folder. So
Okay, so for you, if you guys didn't do this, open the sequence folder, click on, single click on Poolside BTS 01 sequence, copy it and paste it right there, and then rename the new version of it sequence 02. And then you're going to see that it's over to the left. It's just free floating. It's not nested in that sequence bin. Drag it up into the sequence bin. So now you have 2 of them. Okay. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is if we look at the timeline, who can tell me what file is currently open in our timeline? The 01. We see it right there. So we want to start working on the 02. So let's go over to the project panel and double click on the 02. Notice that it opened it in the timeline window, but it could get confusing because there are 2 tabs. The other one is still there. So it's smart to click back on the 01 version and close it with a little X to the left. So that way the 02 version, the one that we're working on going forward, is the one that we have up in our timeline. And at this point, we're just going to do a file save. So all we have is the file that we've called edit02, and we have 2 sequences available, but we're working from here on forward in the O2 version of it. All right. I noticed as I've been working through this that things have changed a little bit since this book was written, so hopefully I found all of the glitches. It's just updates to the versioning of it, because we're now in 2020, and I think this was probably the 2016 version when this was published. But 95% of things are standard. They don't change. So first thing we're going to do, they say to play through it to get a feeling for it. We're not going to do that, but we know what it is. It's interview clips, it jumps to B-roll, whatever. A jump cut is what we're going to add next. So it's an editing technique made famous by a French New Wave director where the middle portion of a shot is removed completely, so there's this abrupt jump from what happened at the beginning and what happened at the end. It's kind of a cinematic thing. So we're going to do that to one of our B-roll shots, but where it is on our timeline, look at all the B-roll shots right now that they've put in there. Do you really want to enlarge and scroll left and right? Not necessarily. So in our project panel, we can click up in the search bar instead, and if you know the name of the clip, which we happen to know, we can start typing it in. So prod, I don't know why my cursor went away, _ Adam _ onset. Onset, not onset. And it twirls open where it's located. So we can see that it's in the footage, B-roll, well we knew that, but what we really don't know is where it lives on the timeline. So we're going to double click on the B-roll bin to open it in its own window. So by double clicking, it just drilled down to the B-roll bin and it's sorted to only the file that matches our search. And then at the bottom, there is the icon view that we can switch to. I'm having a hard time getting to it because my little timer's in the way here. Hold on. So at the bottom, there is the icon view or the list view. When we switch to the icon or the thumbnail view, here's our file that we're looking for on set. As we hover and scrub, we go through it so we can see it there. At the bottom right corner, do you guys see the little blue film strip that you can see? If you hover over it, it says this clip or this video is used 2 times. And if we, no, that's not the right thing. If we single click on it, we're going to see where it is used. We can see that it's used in the behind the scenes 01 sequence. We know, okay, and the 02. Well, the 01 we've already shut away. So here's where it is, and it's at time code 13912. So that tells us if we click on this tip right here, it's going to jump to it. Our playhead's going to jump to that spot in the timeline. So if you know the name of the clip, but you have no clue where it is in your timeline, this is one way of getting to it. Back in your project panel, switch back to the list view, and then we're going to arrow up out of that B-roll bin, and then we're going to clear out the search. So click on the X so that we're not limiting our search. We can see everything again. Click over in your timeline to make that window active and get the blue bounding box around it. And we want to zoom in on our timeline a little bit, so the equal key is what pulls us in closer. And we can see it truly is at the start of the clip called Prod Adam on Set. I'm going to play this sequence right now for you, and we'll listen to it, the main clip up here. See if this works. Stop, slow down, go back. Okay, beautiful imagery on set. Can't wait, yada yada. That's what he's saying here. Oh, this volume is the biggest pain. There we go.
Beautiful imagery happening. Can't wait. This is gonna be awesome.
Okay, so that's what we have right now. So the shot is good, but it can be shortened. I'm going to pull this back into that clip so that we could actually see Adam's face when he says it's going to be awesome. However, we don't want to move any other clips after this one farther ahead in time. So we're going to trim this clip using the razor and cut out some sections to do this jump cut idea. So playhead should be at 139.23. And we're going to grab the razor from our tools. And we're going to apply the razor to this 129.23 timeline point. So cut it right where we have our playhead. You can see now it's 2 clips cut in half. Take your playhead forward a little bit, 142.02. And we're going to use our razor and cut there as well. Come on. Work with me here. So, zoom out. There we go. So prod atom onset is now chopped into 3 pieces. A short one, a long middle, and then a little bit longer end. Switch back to your selection tool and click the middle portion. That's the biggest one, and hit delete on your keyboard to delete it out. And now we're going to move that first piece forward on the track so that it butts up to the 3rd piece that we now have. So we're just going to shimmy it over to the right until it hits up with that last section. So this is what we did instead.
Some beautiful imagery happening. Can't wait. This is going to be awesome.
Seems to me like we jump into this guy pretty quick. Is yours timed out the same way? Do you go to that red scene right away at 1:43? Okay. We must do something with it after the fact. Okay, so we cut out the middle portion and we did a jump cut. All right, so a jump cut within a shot is one way to trim it. Another way to trim it down, its duration, but not the actual content that we see, is to speed it up. So we're still going to show all the frames, but we're going to show them in 2 seconds rather than 4. It's going to be much faster, kind of hyper warp speed. So we're going to apply the rate stretch, which makes it go faster, to something else. So let's scrub ahead to 143.00, which is where this clip with the red prod Matt Jeff starts. And if I play this clip out, it is simply too long. So that's what you see. There's a lot of panning from him behind the camera all the way over to the right. We want to see everything, but we just want it to go faster. So we're going to take our razor tool, and first thing we're going to do is move our playhead ahead 2 frames. So if it's at that start point at 143.02, you can right arrow twice to get it to 143.02 or 2 frames ahead. Take the razor tool and we're going to cut right there. So we have a 2 frame and then a cut. Then move your playhead forward to 145.19 and apply the razor at this point as well. So we have a teeny intro and then a middle section and an end. All right, we're going to go and get the rate stretch tool. It is nested. It's not one we see right away. So the 3rd tool down on the left is the slip tool, and it should be, come on, nested underneath there. No, yep, it isn't. The keyboard shortcut for it, where do we go? I don't have that for that one. So yeah, it's under this one.
What's the name of the tool?
Oh.
Oh,
It's under the ripple. Straight swoosh.
So that second tool on the left is the ripple, and underneath it is the rolling edit. We've used that one, and then the 3rd one down is the rate stretch tool. R is the keyboard shortcut. So the rate stretch tool, let's select that one. This allows us to adjust the playback speed of a clip by stretching its inner out points. By stretching it out or lengthening it, it's going to play slower. By smushing it together, the pages, the flip book's going to go by faster. All right. R. Yep, the rate stretch tool. Did you get it? Okay.
I think there's like so many.
All right, what we want to do now is snap our playhead to the tail end of this short little first clip that came in after just 2 frames. So I'll zoom in a little bit. So we have that first section is only 2 frames long, and then we did a cut. We want to put our playhead right there at 143.02. We're now going to adjust our playhead to the right by 12 frames. So you can arrow over to the right 12, or you can add 12 to 02, which would be a time code of 14, or you can start dragging it, whatever you need to do. So we're going to take our playhead to 143.14. That is 12 frames ahead to the right. Make sure that whatever view you're in, I need to zoom out a little bit. I need to be able to see the tail end of this middle clip, the far end of it. And with our rate stretch tool, we're going to grab the tail end of this middle portion and snap it back to the playhead. So we're going to grab this, wait till your bracket is going to the left, and we're going to shrink this one back to the playhead, snap it back there. So we just took all those frames and we smushed them down to play in only 12 frames instead of however long it was being. Switch back to your selection tool, and we're going to marquee select these first 2 clips. So the teeny tiny 12 framer and then that, or 2 frames, and then the 12 framer we just did next to it. Marquee select those 2, and we're going to move them forward on the timeline so that the tail end of this one bumps up with the rest of the clip down here. So we're just going to take these 2 and move them down to the right so they land right there. So all the way to the next group on the B-roll, we're moving them over. And with my playhead back here, I'll play this edit that we just did. And remember, it's going to go faster now. Okay, so we went from 2 frames of normal motion to 12 frames of super fast, and then however frames are left is at normal speed. That's what we did with this clip right here. Make sense? Using the rate stretch. All right, let's do this with another clip. Prod shooting Jeff Phillip, which is down farther on video 2 at about, try 150-123. Good guess. That is the start of Prod shooting Jeff Phillip. Excuse me.
What was the time code?
150-123.
150.
So the clip itself is Prod shooting Jeff Phillip, and I'm going to play through it, and it's I think going to be
Great
yep.
When that fog first came out.
So it's about the fog. So he thought it was great when that fog first came out. And the duration of this clip is fine, but what it's showing is not the greatest. There's some more fog. So if we speed up parts, we're going to get more fog brought in. We're going to double click on Prod shooting Jeff Phillip right in our timeline to open it up in our source monitor so we can look at it up here. With the source monitor active, press your minus key until you zoom out enough that you can see the start and the end of the entire clip, not just the in and out points that you put. There is a whole lot more of this than just the short part we're showing right here. So this is the part that we've put in and out clips on right now, but notice if I keep going to the right, there's a whole lot more cool fog. So by zooming out on the timeline, we can see non-destructively what's still available to us to use. All right, I'm going to go back to the timeline and just show you by zooming out that I can't just extend the out point of this clip because there's something else coming after it in the timeline, right? So it's not going to allow us to do that right now. or to do it in the source monitor, because there's a clip immediately after it in the sequence. So whenever you need to work on something and you need more room at the in point or the out point and it's landlocked by other clips, you can move it up to an empty track and work on it there and then bring it back down. So we're just going to bump it up to track 3 and do some stuff with it. So grab your selection tool, select this track in our timeline and move it up to video track 3. Now it's got empty space left and right, so we can work on the in and out points as needed or whatever else we want to do. All right, we're going to use the selection tool to extend the out point as far right as it will go, so all the way to the end. So you might need to zoom out on your timeline. So grab the out point of this clip and keep pulling to the right until it stops. And I need to keep zooming out because it goes a long way to the right. It'll eventually stop at about the, I don't know, 204 way out here mark. So you can see this is the part that it was occupying before. It goes at least 2 or 3 times more. So this is what's available non-destructively for us to use. All right, now we're going to mark the frames that will compromise the end of the clip as we want it shown. So go back to the source monitor, and we're going to scrub the playhead in the source monitor to 1217. A lot of fog going on, right? This is where we want to put a marker. So press the letter M. Notice we have the green marker right here. Also notice in our timeline that same green marker showed up. It's right there. All right, now move the playhead in the source monitor a little further ahead to 1306. Mark this for out now. This is our new out point, so letter O. So we've made this clip a lot longer.
And what was the endpoint again?
The endpoint didn't change from where it was originally.
Oh, what was the mark?
The marker?
Yeah.
The marker should be at 1217. And the new out point should be at 1306. So now if you look at your timeline, we can see this really long clip with our marker way back here, but this is the hole that it has to fit in down here. It's way too big, right? So we have to figure out what we're going to do to manipulate it and get it back in here. All right, so we're going to go back to the timeline and do some edits here. So click back to your timeline. Move the playhead to where the marker is in this clip. And as you get close to it, if you hold shift, it should snap right to it. You can zoom in then. So the playhead is now where that marker is. We're going to use the razor and make a cut there. So grab the razor tool and make a cut where the layer marker is right now. Go back to your selection tool. And I need to zoom out of my timeline a smidge. We're going to select this last little clip with our selection tool. Selection tool. You, not that. I got to zoom in, I guess. We're going to select that clip, the little one that we have at the end, and we're going to move it back down into video track 2 so that its out point comes down and finishes right before the clip before it, the next one over. I gotta zoom in, such a pain. So that it snaps next to production Tyler Dwight reaction. So the hole that we made by moving it up a track, we're bringing this little snippet back down and putting it at the end of that hole so that it snaps close to this next clip in line. All right, then grab the rate stretch tool, letter R, which is that third tool nested in that second family of tools. Now we're going to go back up to let me hold on here, make sure I'm in the right place. So many letters and numbers. Endpoint of the second portion of Prod Jeff backwards 12 frames. frames. Okay, so we're going to work on this clip that we just brought in. I'm going to zoom in to get a little closer to it. Move this view around. This is when I wish I had even bigger screens. We are going to use this to extend the end point of the second portion. So this little bit that we just brought back down, we're going to move it backwards 12 frames. So using this tool, start pulling it backwards to the left 12 frames and watch the tool tip that's going to light up. Ugh. Watch me now. You. There we go. So as the tool tip gets to 12, that little gray tip below me now says I'm 12 frames back. I let go. So I stretched out the end point of that second small clip, pulled it backwards by 12 frames. So by doing that, we're making these last frames of the original clip now play in slow motion. We're making that flip book go slower over more time. All right, everybody get that done? Okay. I will take the playhead and put it here. So this is what we're seeing now. I'll just play this quick.
That fog first
Slow
came out,
motion fog.
just blasted on. I love the fog. Fog
Everybody
blast.
loves
Love the fog. All right. They love their fog. All right, timeline playhead. Take it to 153.00. Prod shooting Jeff Phillip, the long track that's up in video track 3, this one. We are going to take the razor tool and we're going to cut that track in video 3 at the current time. So now we have a little smidge and then a whole lot of stuff here at the end. Now we're going to make this middle portion, which in this case is this second one, this long one, because the third portion's already down a track. We're going to make this middle section of the entire clip playback sped up. So take your rate stretch tool again, adjust it to the out point in video track 3, and we're going to pull backwards to the left on it until it shortens up and snaps to the clip below it. So that black space below, we're filling that hole and we're snapping it basically to the start of the clip in video track 2 and then let go. So those two pieces are going to be able to get pushed down again. Does that make sense? We made that go faster? All right. Take your selection tool, marquee select these 2 clips that are up on video track 3 and drag them straight back down into track 2 where they fit just lovely. And here's what it looks like.
I thought it was great when that fog first came out.
So we have normal, sped up fog, slowed down fog. You guys are a tough crowd today. Let's do a file, save as. Poolside edit 02. And if you want to do a page number, so you can go back to a safety point, 415. So we all should be good and clean through this point. 415. Yep. Chapter 4, page 15 in this extra book. Yeah, well, sort of. Okay, next up in our book is about dynamic timeline trimming, and the very first sentence starts, Adobe Premiere Pro CS6 introduced you to this feature. Well, CS6 was a while ago, and this is one of those features that has changed a little bit and got a little bit easier. So eventually in my notes, I have a bunch of things that say no, don't, yes, so hopefully we'll walk through this nice and clean now. Timeline playhead, take it to the end point of Heidi Fan confetti and the crew confetti. So that's way at the end, and the time code is 2:30:10. This time code stuff is so good compared to scrubbing and listening to them talk in fast motion. All right. Note that the end of the first clip is too long, and so is the beginning of the second. So I'll play this and we'll kind of see. It's these 2 clips right here. So they've deemed this too long, and they've deemed this too long. Too boring. Okay. So, nope, the next one. 2:30:10. So we could do a ripple edit. We've done those before, but wouldn't it be nice to just apply it using some precise edits as you're watching the clip actually roll? Like, where do you want it to stop and where do you want it to start? So we're going to activate the ripple edit tool. The shortcut is letter B. So that's nested in the family we were just in, but we're back to the ripple edit tool. Arrows going out from a line in the middle. The tail end of prod shooting Heidi fan confetti, we are going to double click the tail end of it with this tool. By double clicking it, our program monitor should have changed a little bit. Move this over. We should now see the last scene of the Heidi and the first frame of the next one in line. Do you have that double view up in the window now? Okay. All right, so the playhead automatically moves between the edit points, and up here we see the first frames. So underneath here in this program monitor, right underneath the pictures, we see buttons that say -5, -1, +1, +5. These buttons will apply the edit of -1 frame at a time, or -5 frames at a time, or +1 or +5, and it will do the ripple edit for you. It'll pull the other one or push the other one, however it needs to be. So we're going to apply a ripple edit to the tail of Heidi. That's where we have this activated right now, is on the tail of this Heidi clip. We're going to hold down Option and Shift, and we're going to push our left arrow on our keyboard 14 times. So Option, Shift, 14 times. The time code that you should see is 4:07. Option Shift jumps 5 at a time. So we could have come up and done a -5, click that button 14 times also. But we were able to get there doing Option Shift left arrow 14 times. So Heidi is now at 4:05. That's the scene where we want her to be. And I'm telling you numbers right now, but you would do it until you see what you want to see in this frame, or where you want it to switch. Okay, now we're going to apply an edit to the head of the next clip. So in our program monitor up here, program monitor on the right, click on the video frame on the right. So before we had the blue bars around Heidi, now the blue bars are around the clip on the right. That is selecting now, I gotta move this over a smidge. That selected the head of this clip in our timeline. We can see that that's down there. We're gonna Option Shift right arrow 12 times until our time code says 2:13. So Option Shift right 12 times. And we need it to say 2:13, so we need it to go one more frame. So you can either just Shift right arrow, or you can come up to the little +1 button here and do that. So get your time code to 2:13, either using keyboard shortcuts or the +5, +1, -1. And did you see how that pulled that over? It took that endpoint and changed that. 2:13, yep. So now, if we look at this, it's not as long and boring. Heidi is throwing into the fan, and that's what we see of that one. It was a rolling edit, but we did it visually using the program monitor, seeing the last clip and the first clip. All right. Timeline playhead. Go to the next clip in the sequence. Prod, Philip, Heidi, throw confetti. Snap to that one. On this one, we're going to activate a roll edit, and letter N is a shortcut for that, or it would be the second tool nested in here, ripple rolling rate. So second one down, roll edit. We're going to apply a roll edit between this clip and the next one, the confetti lyrics, which is down the line next. And we're going to offset the out point of the first clip and the in point of the second, each by 10 frames. So we're going to change them both by 10 frames. So with the roll edit tool, we're going to select the edit point between these two clips and we're going to double click on it. So not where your playhead is, but between those next two clips, between throw height, throw confetti, and confetti lyrics, we're going to double click using that roll edit. That's also going to activate our source monitor, or I'm sorry, it's actually the program monitor, but we see the two different clips. We're going to Option Shift right arrow twice. Option Shift right arrow, 1, 2. That shifted the endpoint between these two clips ahead to the right by 10 frames. One last clip to do. If we look back at our timeline, I'm going to switch back to the selection tool so I don't screw anything up. And then I'm going to zoom out on my timeline so I can see the end of it. The one thing that happened here is that by shortening things up on video track 2, we sucked back this last clip on video track 2. This sweeping always came after the music. Do you guys remember that? That it would start after the green music stopped back in the audio tracks, but it got moved. So one small task to do is take our selection tool and select that clip and drag it to the right until the beginning of it snaps to the end of the audio down in audio tracks 2 and 3. And then do a file save as, and this is 420. So we've done a couple of edits. One takeaway from this that when you're actually doing your own that I want you to remember is if you need to do some editing but you don't have room in the track that you're on, you can always pull it up to an empty track and play with the in and out points or do things to it, make it smaller, faster, slower, slow motion, whatever, and then pull it back down into the track where it's supposed to fit, into the hole that you left for it. All right, next thing we're going to do is incorporate more of the red footage, which is that high res 4K super awesome footage. And like I mentioned off and on, that's the same thing as shooting in camera raw with your digital SLRs. Every single thing is recorded and remembered, and you can tweak it at any point. So if your exposure was wrong, you can change it. If your white balance is wrong, you can change it. And it's 4K. There's so many more pixels to work with. It's a whole different animal. So because of that, there are different things about it in general, like sizing and frames per second. So to see that, we're going to jump back to our project panel and twirl shut the B-roll. And then, hold on, I need to make this a little smaller. All right, then we're going to twirl open the, we're already in the footage bin. And we're going to twirl open the R3D bin. Whoops, I didn't mean to double click it. Just twirl it open. And you're going to see that there are 4 clips inside there. And also twirl open your interview bin. And with this whole project window active, press that tilde key up at the top left corner of your keyboard so that we get it to blow up as one big thing. In the footage folder. Twirl that open. Oh, you just got to clear this out. If your search window still is looking for Adam, you're not going to see anything in your searches. Make sure that search bar is emptied and cleared out and it doesn't say Adam on set anymore. So with those two open and showing large, a couple of differences that you can easily see. Frame rate. Do you see how all of our interview clips are what frame rate? Yeah, basically 24, that 29 version. And what are these R3D files? 48? Is that what it says? A lot more, right? Another difference, come over to the physical dimensions. All of our movie or sequence so far is set up at 1920 by 1080. That's the physical size, height, and width. Look at our red files, 3000 by 1600. They're physically bigger. So when we put them in our little window that our current movie is in, there's going to be parts of them missing that can't fit in the window until we do something to them to make them work. So hit the tilde key again to shut that down, and then twirl shut your interview bin. We don't need to look at that anymore. Take the file called, the red file or R3D called prod music video raw 01, and double click it or drag it up to the source. Either way, it's going to do the same thing. And right underneath that actual picture on the left in the drop down, we have the fit to screen. We want to take that up to 100% to really see what's available. So at 100%, we need to use these little scroll bars to go up and down to see all of it. And we need to use, where are they? Right here, these scroll bars to go left and right. It's much bigger. So we have a lot more pixels and a lot more data there. If we wanted to play this back in our source window, we'd want to make sure that our playback was at one of these lower versions, half, quarter, or an eighth, because playing this back at full resolution with 4K definition would be really laggy and slow and gross. So those are the two things you want to be aware of. All right. All right, we're going to put this clip in our sequence, but before we do that, we need to move a few things around in our timeline. So go back to your timeline, and let's take our playhead to about 22900, and then zoom in. So in my case, they're purple. Those last 4 clips that we edited, prod shooting Heidi, prod shooting crew, Heidi, and confetti, those 4, we're going to marquee select the 4 of those. So these 4, we're going to marquee select. And we're going to drag these to the right on our timeline until they snap to the 237 point. So if you want to move your timeline to 23700, that'll show us where we're headed. And then we're going to take these 4 clips and we're going to drag them down until the last of them, or till the end point snaps to that playhead. The tail of the last clip snaps here. All right. So we talked about if we're going to insert things from our source monitor, they're going to go wherever the playhead is, and how does it know what track to land on? I think we did that in that last horrible book a little bit. But right now, if we had our playhead here, and we used the insert button and told whatever's in our source monitor to insert down here, it's going to go to wherever the playhead is on whatever track is targeted. And in this case, it's video track 1. So that's where everything is. So if that's what you want, that's great. But that's not probably what we want. We probably want to put it on track 3 where we're doing other things or something. So those are the things we need to remember, is whenever we use the insert or overwrite buttons here, rather than just dragging it ourselves and putting it on a track, when we use those, we have to make sure that our track targeting is right and we know where we're headed. Okay. Take your timeline playhead, 22604, and select the source patch for video track 3. So move that leftmost blue box and click on video track 3. That's telling it now it's going to go on track 3 right where our playhead is. Then up in our source monitor, this clip that we want to put in, we're going to click on the overwrite icon. So click that, and on, gotta get down here, on video track 3, it put that track now. And it obviously goes farther. We start to see that there are clips beneath it that it's covering up, so we're going to have to do something with this as well. So you're getting it on video track 3 at that point. And let's watch this up in our program monitor. And everything looks good, but now we get here. See how it's zoomed in? That file physical size is much bigger than our physical movie so far. So we need to deal with that. Our whole sequence has that frame rate of 1920 by 1080, and this one is bigger. So click on to select that track that we just put down in video track 3, that red file. And then we need to go up in our source monitor on the left. Nested up there are some other windows we can open up, and effect controls is the one we want. If you don't see it there, Shift and the number 5 will pop it open, but you should see it as a tab right here. So the effect controls. Have this highlighted first, and then Shift number 5, not F5. Effect controls panel. So what we see here are the actual details where we can tweak every single thing going on. So there is a motion category, and we're going to twirl that open. We see the physical positioning of it based on pixels and the scale. Scale's at 100%. It's too big. We're going to click on that. And because we're genius, we know that it's 67%. So we can type 67 and hit enter. And that scaled it down to fit the best it can. The reason we're not doing that scale it to frame size like we did one other time to make something bigger is that the proportions of this aren't the same. Where one is like a 16:9 ratio, this is a little bit different, and the width and the height wouldn't fill. So they wouldn't vertically fill it if we allowed the width to be, or the height to be a certain way. So we come into motion and we change the scale. This would be trial and error, but in this case, we know that this is 67%. We'll get it down to the right size. Now we can see the whole frame in our window. Next thing we're going to do is add another red clip. This one's going to show the dancers, and we're going to make them dance in slow motion. Go back to the project panel. No. Yes, the project panel. That's the name of it. Poolside dancers. Get that up into our source monitor. So double click it or drag it up to your source monitor. Do a fit to window so that you can see the whole thing, because we had it at 100% before, showing how good it is. The playhead here, we're going to adjust to 1421, those are the same, 3621. So 1421, 3621, and this is where we want our out point to be. So O for the out. So we cut off a whole lot of it at the end, made it a lot smaller. Good. All right, now we're going to go down to our timeline, and we're going to go over interview Adam Jeff, and I'm just going to tell you a time code that we're going to go and look at first, 20602. And I'm going to play this. This is the interview with Adam and Jeff where they're talking, and I'll play this out so we have an idea of what's going on. So here it is.
We're like approaching the final shots here. We're getting a wide shot, which is looks fantastic. Can't complain.
Yeah. Final stretch.
It's actually rolling right now, which is kind of cool, which is super meta.
So there is another camera back farther that's recording at the exact same time, this high res. So when he says, this is super meta, they're recording, we're rolling right now, that other camera is farther back shooting this, and we're going to clip that in as B-roll footage. It's going to switch to that camera, and we're going to make sure that his mouth is saying meta right when he's truly saying meta in the interview clip. So that's what we're going for here. All right. So at 20602 is where Adam says wide shot.
Wide shot.
Yep. 20602. So we want it right before he says wide shot, and you can kind of see his mouth is ready to say wide. In our source monitor, Make sure that we are set to go to video track 3 still. So our source patching is still at video track 3, and our playhead is at 20602. And up in our source monitor, we're going to click on the overwrite icon, and that's going to put that clip, that very short clip, right there in video track 3. The timeline automatically bumps to the end of that clip that we just placed so that you can see it's now at 2:07:20. All right, this clip, I'm going to zoom in and play it. When he says wide shot, this is what it goes to.
Here we're getting a wide shot, which is
Okay, so it cuts to the wide shot of the dancers. What we want to do is click on this clip to select it. So the one that we just put there. And we're going to give it some slow motion and some other things. So right click on it now that you have it selected. And we're going to look for clip speed. Speed duration, sorry, that's close. Speed duration, click on that. And that's going to bring up this little floating window. And it says how fast in percentages or how long of a duration. So right now it's 1 second, 18 frames. We're going to change the speed value to 50%. And make sure that before we do anything, all of these checkboxes are unchecked. We don't want any of them selected. And then say OK. So that pulled it out, and now it's playing in, see, slow motion. Okay. Select this clip again if you need to in your timeline, and we're going to go back up to our effect control panel, so the one that's nested in the source window up here. And we're going to go again and look at the motion properties, and the scale of it is at 100%, but this is again that 4K high res. We need to scale this back to 67% of scale, not 100, and that's going to bring the whole thing into view. All right, do a file save as 4:30, and we're going to take a break here.
Wish it was 4:30.
Nice.
Don't we all?
Tired.